A brief overview of Chapter 4. It basically is talking about the definition of fluency, which is basically fluency is reading like you talk, not too fast and not too slow, but with expression and no sounding out. And it's also important to understand what you read. And it talks about the four major components of fluency, which is reading with comprehension, accuracy, appropriate rate, and expression or prosody, which is another word for expression. So accuracy and appropriate rate are um, how it's basically explaining when you read a passage, it's how many words you're getting correct out of the whole passage, and those two components really tie in with comprehension and with expression because if students are reading fluently, they are basically reading without much thought about what they are actually reading. So effective teachers understand that both silent reading and oral reading are valuable tools for instructional decisions. And so fluency is based on oral reading, which promotes readers' proficiency in applying reading strategies and possible needs in word identification and or fluency, while silent reading is better at assessing reading comprehension. So overall, the chapter is examining two types of oral reading strategies to engage students and strengthen their fluency, which is oral reading as an assessment, which is more private and individually. So just the teacher and student, and you're basically getting a diagnosis of what the student needs to work on, where their miscue analysis comes to play, and oral reading as a performance, which is reading out loud to an audience. And so the student is getting opportunities to read aloud where they are learning how language is used in a written text and how to communicate to an audience and how to interpret a text in a more expressive manner. These two types of strategies are very beneficial because especially when you are just with your student and they are reading to you, you can get a better analysis on where your students are when it comes to their reading levels. So you have a better understanding of how to group people based on what goals they need to improve on. And also remember that the purpose of listening to students read aloud is helping you target those instructional decisions and basically can help you plan your lessons on the student's specific needs. In oral reading's performance, so when the students are reading aloud to an audience, it really benefits them to be able to be confident in reading out loud and also encourage other students to do the same. And there's other lessons that you can do like readers theater or even storytelling to get more practice in reading with expression to help with their fluency and comprehension in more engaging and creative ways to stimulate students' interests.
Ignoring punctuation, section 4.3. Students who normally ignore punctuation is most likely to make significant miscues when reading. It's more helpful to teach students with the most basic marks of punctuation, such as a period, comma, question mark, and exclamation mark. Then you can move on to more advanced punctuation, such as a semicolon, colon, and dashes. You should provide a punctuation chart that splits up into categories such as types of punctuation, symbol, what it means, and a sentence example. For example, under the chart, it says types of punctuation, period. The symbol shows a period, what it means, stop briefly, and the example is I ran around the track. When students do not pause at periods and commas, have them point to the marks of punctuation and reread the sentence with a pause.
For Chapter 4, Section 4, it's about repetitions of words or phrases. Repetition of words are a way to help students understand what they read. It can help them attempt to correct any miscues when reading a more advanced text material. Repetitions allow students to have extra time to figure out what the word may be. Also, as a teacher, parent, or guardian, it's important to always praise a student when they do correct a miscue because it helps them know that they are learning and that they are able to make any corrections that need to be made. Also, if a student is constantly having to use repetition to understand a reading, it may be useful to use a reading assessment. A reading assessment can help a student break down words to understand what they mean and to pronounce the words correctly. Also, having students read together and work together can be beneficial. If a student reads and is constantly having to repeat the word, their partner can tell them to either slow down when reading or just take a break and try to restart. Reading assessments can help students work on vocabulary and comprehension. Once students become more familiar with reading, it can decrease their repetitions.
In section 11 of chapter 4, this focuses on students making omissions throughout their miscue that has a meaning change. So this means that the behavior that the student is showing is that the words that they're omitting from their sentences changes the author's intended meaning of the text, or the omits that they're making means that the sentence does not make sense anymore. Some perspectives that the student may have when making these miscues is that the student may need a lower level text. The student may also be reading too fast and needs to slow down. If something is distracting the student, they may not be paying close attention to the text's meaning as well. A strategy that can help with students' meaning changes with their omissions is that using a pocket chart, write sentences on note cards. In the sentences, there should be an omitted word. At the end of the sentence, in parentheses, write the word at the end so the student knows what word is being omitted. Then, have the students get together with partners. Have them look at the note cards, read the sentence together, and discuss each of the sentences together. During this discussion, the students should decide whether or not the omitted word has changed the sentence meaning or makes the sentence not make sense. Ask the students why or why not the omitted word has meaning changing. This will allow students to understand omitted words and what they mean. In section 4.5, lack of expression, it talks about how appropriate expression is characterized by phrasing, punctuation, tone, emphasis, intonation, and pitch to help convey the author's message and facilitate comprehension. And so students should be taught the elements of prosody, which is the ability to make oral reading sound like authentic oral speech, while reading orally to show them to develop better reading fluency. So a strategy would be to prepare a sheet of character dialogue and have students practice aloud the way the characters might have spoken. And so while they are reading that, they are looking for typographic signals, which is either bold or italic or font size, or other cues for phrasing, emphasis, and etc. And they should be commenting on relevant elements before and after they read the sentences. Even though we're going to be doing demonstration on the strategy, I wanted to give some more examples of other ways character dialogue can be used in our students' readings. And so one example is that the second sentence says, "Please, oh please, help me lift this box." And so since please is bolded, it helps me understand that as a reader, I have to put more emphasis on that word and also to convey the meaning of how it's used in the sentence, where it could give me a picture in my head of what is actually going on in this context. So I could actually read it with expression. It would be said as, "Please, oh please help me lift this box," which means maybe the character needs help and she's, is putting a lot of expression on that she is suffering and can't lift the box up. I want to point out another example, which was the fourth sentence that says, "The dog has long white hair and some brown spots." And so since I could read that the word long has dashes in between each letter, that helps the reader understand that the character must put a lot of emphasis on how long the dog's white hair is. And so it should be read as, "The dog had long white hair and some brown spots."
The article that we found for our section was called Reading Fluency Assessment and Instruction: What, Why, and How. The scholarly article by researchers Hudson, Lane, and Pullen covers the important factors of what fluency is, how can you teach and assess it, and what the assessment mean. 3 key elements to reading fluency: accurate reading of connected text at a conversational rate with appropriate prosody expression. Tables and figures are provided for the reader that gives reliable student data and specific resources for fluency assessments and tools that can be used in the classroom. 4 key elements to reading fluency: accurate reading of connected text at a conversational rate with appropriate prosody expression. Tables and figures are provided for the reader that gives reliable student data and specific resources for fluency assessments and tools that can be used in the classroom.
expression is basically characterized by how everything is phrased, the punctuation, the tone, and the emphasis of the text. So this is going to help your reading fluency because it helps convey the author's message. Okay class, today we're going to be talking about section 4.5, lack of expression and using character dialogue. So we have 4 examples here, and I'm going to ask one of you to predict how you would read this sentence out loud. Okay, so Olivia, how would you read this first sentence?
This is my first time.
I just wanted to clarify that Olivia is representing how students can lack fluency by just reading word by word in a monotone voice because they are paying little to no attention to what they're actually comprehending from the text. Kaylee, please read this sentence right here.
Where have you been?
I love the effort, but since I'm asking you a question, how do you think it should be said?
Where have you been?
See, I love the enthusiasm. So since when you read the sentence a second time, what helped you, what signals helped you understand to read it in that way?
So since the word where is at the beginning and it's bolded in a different color, I know that emphasizes that it has to be a question. And then at the end of the question, since there is a question mark, then I have full clarity that it is a question.
Perfect. Helena, please read this sentence.
The movie was amazing.
Okay, so I love the effort that you made. But since there's an exclamation point now, how do you think it should be said when you read it?
The movie was amazing.
Perfect, thank you. You can see that the first word looks strange, but the rest of the sentence gives us a clue as to how it should be read. Listen as I read the sentence and pay particular attention to how I stretch out the word yes. So, yes, she says, drawing out the yes as though stretching a balloon. In this example, usually students would have the same book in front of me. So this is basically saying that when they are reading and they have good fluency, they should be reading this as in like having a conversation with someone. With that being said, the students are also developing automaticity, which means that they're not just going to devote their attention to the task of decoding words. They are also focusing on constructing meaning of what they are reading. So when they read this aloud, instead of just saying yes, they could see that there is extra ease in there, and the cue is that the way that it's phrased lets them know that there is more emphasis on that word, especially when it's saying as though stretching a balloon in that figurative language can help them understand that, oh, I have to say this in a more expressive context. Now students, echo what I just said.
Yes, she said.
Okay class, you guys did great today with your expressions and your readings. So overall, I just want to clarify that when we read character dialogue, we have to pay attention to the punctuation, how it's written, and how the italicized and bold print, all those are signals to how we should be reading this to help with our fluency. Overall, I hope this lesson helps you understand how to use expression in your reading.